Good morning, PT on Ice. Welcome to the PT on Ice Daily Show. Make sure Facebook is working over here. I think we are good. Perfect. I am Dr. Alexis Morgan. I am lead faculty with clinical management of the fitness athlete, pregnancy, and postpartum. I am excited to be here with you all this morning to talk about our topic, to kegel or not to kegel. Before I just totally jump into that, just want to say if you are interested in any of our courses, you can go to ptonice.com and find out all about our live courses. We are still rolling. It is October. This is one of the busiest months for us at ICE. We have got courses in all of our courses. We are all over the country. So be sure to check that out if you are trying to hop into an ICE course. And of course, we also have in the next month our clinical management of the fitness athlete, pregnancy and postpartum online coming. That is in November. So if you are interested in joining that, please sign up online as well. Or if you have any questions, feel free to comment below or DM either Christina or I. All right, to kegel or not to kegel. Advice about kegels is all over the place. And, it's kind of funny. A lot of times I get asked, what is a kegel? Why are they called kegels? And we'll get into a little bit of that as far as the why, but the what is a kegel is just a pelvic floor contraction, just another name for that. And the advice on the internet for pelvic floor contractions is all over the place. So I just kind of Googled it as though I were a consumer, which, by the way, is a really good exercise for us to do, just to kind of see, okay, what is it that our patients, our clients are seeing whenever they look up whatever it is that we've discussed. It can be a little bit scary. But the Mayo Clinic tells us that we need to do 3 sets of 10 to 15 once a day, every day. Harvard says we need to do 3 to 4 sets of 10, which is similar, but we need to make sure that when we do that contraction, we do a hold for 3 to 5 seconds. And on top of that, we do quick flicks. So contract, relax, contract, relax, contract, relax. Okay, and then WebMD, all 3 of these really good sources, right, that we kind of consider as good sources. WebMD says do 1 set of 10. You do want to hold it for 3 seconds and do that 2 or 3 times in a day. Oh, and by the way, you should do this every single day, and it'll take about 15 weeks to feel any results. Oh my goodness. So we've got some low volume reps of kegels or pelvic floor contractions. Kind of have, as far as sets and rep and intensity and all that total volume, it does kind of vary between these resources. So it's all over the place. That's not even to mention all the blogs that you can find and all of the Instagram articles and live videos and all of that. And so it really comes back to like, okay, what does a person need to do when they're doing their kegels or their pelvic floor contractions? And do they even need to be doing them? So the pelvic floor has just been so elusive. So I almost feel like it's like secretive. It's like this secret club that only the pelvic floor clinicians really know what to do. And while it is the case that a good pelvic floor assessment can really help you, I just want to have you all kind of understand a little bit more about what that is and how it really ought to be prescribed. So To Kegel, an argument for doing Kegels. So Dr. Arnold Kegel, wrote essentially the inaugural paper on pelvic floor exercises. And this was back in 1948. And actually the paper's still available. And if you're interested, comment below and I'll send you a link. Pretty interesting. So back in the late 40s, this doc published a paper and he's like, I think I've got something figured out. And this is based off of actually some individuals, some early women's health physical therapists, some females, some of their work in conjunction with some studies done on the pelvic floor of some women in Africa who, after they have a baby, they work really, really hard to contract their pelvic floor muscles. One of the women in that community helps them do that. And they had abnormally strong pelvic floors postpartum. So there's all of this kind of conversation about this kind of in the 20s, 30s, 40s. And Dr. Kegel was the first to actually write a paper about it for us to go back to. And he made some really big claims that by doing these pelvic floor contractions, he called them, he didn't call them Kegels. By doing these contractions, these women are healing themselves of urinary incontinence. And whereas it's natural to have a pelvic floor that is just that is not very strong after having a baby, what we can do is build up that strength. And he talks about how sometimes there's tears in the perineum. And we know this as physical therapists. If there's a tear in a muscle and we just build strength around that and build strength through that, we get stronger and we can move past that. Right? And that muscle then heals. And he talks about that in the paper. What he recommended back then was 20 minutes a session, 3 sessions per day. And what he had was this interesting device that it was essentially hooked up to like a blood pressure cuff, and a little tube was inserted vaginally. And then when the person were to squeeze their pelvic floor muscles, it gave them a number, and it gave them kind of actually a graph. And so they could literally see their progress. And when talking about building the bike, how we want to demonstrate to somebody that they're improving, that was a really great way, especially we're thinking back into the 40s. That was a really great way to build the bike for those individuals. So some reasons why we would want to strengthen the pelvic floor, just like what Dr. Kegel was saying back in 1948, we want these individuals to have less incontinence. He talked about how one woman, within 30 days, she eliminated all of her incontinence that she'd had for 11 years. And of course, that was an extreme case that he was wanting to share. But when we have strong pelvic floors, they can support our organs and they can withstand the pressure coming down from that intra-abdominal pressure, or even just from the high impact exercises. So it's really, really good to have a strong pelvic floor. Helps us to have less incontinence. It also improves in sexual satisfaction. And there's been some interesting studies come out here as well, talking about the stronger the pelvic floor is, the stronger an orgasm is. So there's a few reasons why we may want to have stronger pelvic floors. So some of the ways to strengthen the pelvic floor. We can just simply squeeze pelvic floor muscles. That's kind of in general, that's what Mayo Clinic, Harvard WebMD was saying. Just to squeeze the pelvic floor muscles while you're sitting, while you're lying down. You can also squeeze the pelvic floor muscles while you're walking, while you're standing, while you're exercising. And that's just one way. Another way is to utilize some vaginal cones. So I don't know if you've all heard of these, but this is like resistance training for the pelvic floor. The cones are weighted, and there's often you can buy a set where there's multiple weights increasing in resistance, and the person can literally resist that weight pulling down from gravity to the ground. They're resisting it with their pelvic floor and holding it up. So it's a really good way as well. And then there's also some kind of 2021 version of what Dr. Kegel had back in the day. There's some electronic tools that can be inserted vaginally, and then you can see your pelvic floor contract and see the strength gains over time. So there's a lot of different ways that we can do it, but really when it boils down to it, one of the most important things that we can provide is the parameters for these kegels. So talking about tempo, how fast do I want you to go? How long do I want you to pause in that contraction? And how long do I want you to rest in between? So looking at sets as well and repetitions, the rest time in between reps or in between sets. And all of this we can build based off of the internal exam. We can build this off of what they're coming in with their goals, their functional goals. If I've got an athlete who is trying to work on double unders because she's leaking every time she gets to rep 100 in her workout, that's a much different Kegel and strengthening plan than is someone who is every single time she catches a clean above 45 pounds, she's leaking at the bottom. Two totally different muscle fibers, two totally different situations going on around the leaking, and therefore their Kegels or their pelvic floor contractions will be looking different. Add that on top of whatever it is that we find in the exam. So we can really specialize that, and honestly, this is where our live course comes in, where we're going to be talking about these specific topics. But it is so important to strengthen the pelvic floor. But you may hear online and in some of these conversations that, oh, wait. Maybe you shouldn't do any Kegels. And so I want to talk real quickly about some of the reasons why we may not want to strengthen the pelvic floor, and where does that come from. So there are some reasons why we may choose to not prioritize strength, and those are that if someone already has a very tense pelvic floor and is not able to hit full relaxation, that's a good reason not to work on strengthening. If their pelvic floor is really really tight and lifted already, when they go to do a pelvic floor contraction, a lift, there's not going to be much movement. And we may think, ooh, they're not strong, but maybe they're just not relaxed. And so we want to teach them how to relax first. So we may work on deep breathing. We may utilize a pelvic wand or have them do some internal release work, have us do internal release work. All of this to get them to bring that pelvic floor, that relaxation down. But we got to ask ourselves, why are those muscles tense? Why are there trigger points in those muscles? I think about it a lot with the traps, right? We always talk about, oh, our traps are so tight. You've got knots. And what do we do for that? We load it, right? We do heavy carries. We do overhead. We do things to load the traps to get them stronger so that they're not getting fatigued out from their everyday life. We can do the same thing with the pelvic floor. So yes, get them to learn how to relax. get them to where they can do that full contraction, and then have them do that full contraction. I think it could be all stemming from this lack of strength in there. I'm really curious of your thoughts. So wrapping up here, it's coming back once again to and, not or, right? If we were to ask, do I kegel or do I not kegel? Or rather, do I kegel or do I work on relaxation? Strengthen versus relaxation. It's very similar to asking, do we do manual therapy or do we do exercise? We do both to get the best results. Do we strengthen the pelvic floor? Do we work on relaxation of the pelvic floor? We do both to get the best results. So yes, do the kegels, do the pelvic floor exercises, work on getting stronger. There's so many benefits to strength. We know this from all other muscles in our body. We know this is true with the pelvic floor. And also work on that relaxation. We know it is beneficial to be able to volitionally contract and relax the pelvic floor. Both of these things are required in order to have health at our pelvic floor. I would love to hear your thoughts on this, and comment below, tag me. I want to hear your ideas, disagreements. Let me know what you think. And like I said, please, if you are interested in joining our online cohort, that starts November 1st, we would love to have you. And you can check us out in 2022 for our live course, where we will be going over all of this stuff, an internal exam and what to do about it to get your athletes to where they can meet all of their fitness goals without the leaking and without the pain. Thanks for having me this morning. Have a great Monday. We will catch you next time.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.